back to another video. Rope Monster here. What if I told you that you could live in this neighborhood in Playa del Carmen, Mexico for as little as $700 to $900 a month? Would I have your attention? Today I'm going to show you guys the neighborhood. We're going to go on a walking tour. We're going to talk budget, cost of living here in Colosio. Let's go. So yes, you guys did hear correctly. I said $700 to $900 a month. But first, let's talk about whether or not this neighborhood's right for you. I wanted to show you back in the actual neighborhood here. This is 15th right here. So we're 2 blocks over from 5th and now walking parallel to 5th Avenue to the south. First things I wanted to say is that I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's some street dogs and some street vendors that do make a substantial amount of noise. And the dogs tend to get active toward the nighttime. So that can be disturbing for some people, but you are trading the club noise and the music and all that for the dogs and the street vendors who ride around on their bikes selling bread. But overall, it's a pretty relaxed neighborhood. And so you've got small tiendas like this one for anything you need. Coca-Cola, water, snacks, ice. And this is very much a real Mexican neighborhood. So if that sounds good to you guys, let's get right into budget. And the $700 to $900 number isn't some random speculative number. I've actually been holding myself to that challenge the last 3 months, and I've been living between $700 and $900 a month. So my apartment is about $350 US. And if you stick around to the end of the video, there will be a montage showing a quick video of my apartment, what that gets you. So 350, about 6,500 pesos. And that includes all my utilities and my Wi-Fi except for electricity. So if I add electricity to that, and I do run my air conditioning sometimes at night, it really only adds on an extra $10 to $20 a month max. You get the electric bill every 2 months here, and my last bill was just over 300 pesos. So extremely cheap, surprisingly cheap, to the point where I've been running my AC even more just to see if it drives the bill up very much. So rent and utilities, you can actually find places back here for cheaper than what I pay. 4,000, 4,500 pesos, around 225 US. So it all really depends on what you want. And then if you are over on 5th Avenue, closer to the beach, you might pay 6,500 to 10 or 11,000 pesos if you want to get up into a 1 or even 2 bedroom place. My place is a studio, but that's really, in my opinion, all you need. It did come furnished. California king bed, 50-inch flat screen TV, upgraded kitchen. So really nothing to complain about. And it does not have a washer and dryer. Most places here don't. Some of the newer, more modern buildings do, especially more toward the center. But we're talking about Colosio here. If you want to live in the center or in the Playa Car area, it's going to cost you quite a bit more. So what I do for laundry, I go to the lavanderia, and there's one here on 10th that I prefer. And here it is. So we're on 10th Avenue, parallel to 5th, walking south. And this place has a 3.5 kilo minimum. So even if you have less than 3.5 kilos, you will pay the 50 peso minimum. But that's just over $3 to have your laundry washed, dried, and folded right here. And it says 12 pesos a kilo there, it's now 13. will survive that type of increase. So now we have rent, utilities, laundry covered. What about cell phone? I use Telcel, and for as little as 79 pesos up on 30th Avenue in the Colosio neighborhood, there are Telcel shops, and for 79 pesos you can get a Mexican phone number and a Telcel SIM card, and then you can recharge that anytime it runs out of data. You just go to the OXXO, put 50 pesos, 100 pesos on there. If you don't want to do it that frequently, you can put as much as 500 pesos on your phone, and that'll last you a month. So we'll call it, I spend about $10 a month for my phone data. And you actually do get much more data for Meta platforms. So Instagram and WhatsApp is really what I use to communicate. And that doesn't really eat through much data at all. So we've now covered laundry, utilities, rent, cell phone, and we're still under $400. So that $700 a month is looking pretty doable. I do my big grocery shoppings at Walmart, and please don't judge me. I'm just saying that the prices are consistent, the produce is good quality, and it's cheap. I can get out of there with enough meat and vegetables for a week for $40 or $50 or less. And then in the local tiendas, I'll usually buy my eggs, watermelon, papaya, pineapple, snacks, and I do make my own sauerkraut, and that's extremely cheap. Cabbage is so cheap here, rice is cheap. So for the food budget, $100, $150 a month, you can do it and you can eat very well. I stay in really good shape and I'm really active, so you can imagine I need a lot of calories, a lot of protein. But I managed to do that on 100, 150 a month, and I do eat meals out as well. And so these types of buildings, back to the rent issue and finding an apartment, I did not find my apartment on Facebook Marketplace, nor did I find it in any local publications like Mano a Mano. I actually followed a tip from a friend of mine, and I just went to the Colosio neighborhood, which is where he told me to go, and I started knocking on gates. And I knocked on a few doors and, hollered out. I wasn't shy about it, and asked if these people had any units for rent. And within maybe 20, 30 minutes of doing that, I met Greece, who is now my landlady. She said she had a studio available. We worked out a contract within a couple days, and she actually gave me a 3-month lease, and then I was able to extend it for a couple more months. So she was really lenient about that. And it's pretty typical to pay first month and deposit here. But generally, if people ask for first, last, and deposit, that's a reach, because pulling that much cash out or doing a transfer when you don't really know a person that well can definitely be risky. And also your bank can potentially flag your account or freeze your account if you pull too much cash out at one time or in multiple transactions. So what Greece let me do with my place was she let me pay the first month and half the deposit the first month, and then the second month I paid the next month's rent and the other half of the deposit. So people are usually willing to work with you based on your financial needs. And so now we're here back on 5th Avenue. We've got the bike path there. And this video was inspired by a comment from a subscriber, JP. He was asking, is Colosio a viable option for retirees 62 years or older? And we've got an iguana crossing here. And my answer to JP is yes, absolutely. But it's also a good option for younger retirees, people who are trying to retire early on a budget. Because a lot of us can work part-time remotely, build up enough passive income to manage to pull in $700 to $900 a month. That's not a huge reach. And so transportation's another thing to consider. I have a longboard. A lot of people get around here on scooters and bicycles. If you need to take a colectivo or a bus, the colectivo is only 10 pesos. The bus is only 7 pesos. And about 5 blocks up that way on 30th Avenue, you can catch the colectivo or the bus and get as far as you need to north-south. So sometimes when I go to Walmart and I do my big shopping, I'll bring my own, bag, get on the bus, and take the bus or the colectivo back. And for $1 or a little under $1, I've made my trip there and back. And then as far as discretionary spending, eating out can be very cheap. There's places up on 30th that are incredibly cheap. But even down here on 5th Avenue, there's a few taco spots where they're high-end, shrimp tempura tacos and things like that. And I usually get out of there for around $10. So, Lola. And so here in Colosio, we also have Playa 72, which is the crown jewel of this neighborhood, in my opinion. But other discretionary spending like adventures. I went to Cenote Azul recently, and the colectivo was only 35 pesos, a little over $2 for the colectivo. So for right there, that puts you right at about $700 with a little bit of wiggle room to get up to that $900 mark. You can do quite a bit more eating out. Maybe a trip to Cozumel or Holbox or Isla Mujeres on the ferry. You can go to Chichen Itza, one of the wonders of the world, and that's a full day tour. You get to go see the ruins and also go to a couple different cenotes, and that's about $60 US. So generally on that $900 a month budget, you can afford, maybe one small adventure not too far from here every single week, and then one big one every month. So I can certainly afford more and spend more, but I notice that my quality of life doesn't really go up the more I spend here. For example, I feel better when I cook at home. You risk less in the way of food poisoning, upsetting your stomach. I notice a lot of these places do use really cheap oil. If you really watch them at the taco stands, they'll use pretty cheap oil, corn, soy. So this place is really good for smoothies, and they make little arugula pizzas and things like that. And we're on the corner of Colosio and 10th now. So this guy Poncho here is great. Come see him for sure. But yeah, that's just a quick rundown of the neighborhood. Any other questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you guys want to see more videos like this, geared more toward retirees, retiring early, budget, and logistics of living here, please do let me know. And I wanted to touch on one more subject, is that the cost of residency has gone up substantially in Mexico, but don't let that discourage you, because the residency requirements and the cost of living here are two very, very different things. So, you may be able to live here on $900 a month, but you'll have to prove much more income than that if you want your residency here. Otherwise, if you can't afford residency, you can do 6 months here on a tourist visa. Typically, they'll give you 6 months. And then if you leave the country for a day or so, you can go to Guatemala, Belize, back to the US or Canada, and generally come back and get another 6-month tourist visa. And that depends in large part on where you fly into. But if you fly into Cancun or Puerto Vallarta, there's a good chance they're going to give you the 6 months. Tangerine Travels, great channel here on YouTube. They have, or he has, an updated video on the residency requirements. So pop over to Tangerine Travels if you want more information on the residency requirements. But I wanted to just touch on Playa del Carmen's cheaper option here. A lot of people go on and on about how expensive Playa del Carmen is, and actually you can have a pretty good quality of life here for $700 to $900 a month. Hope you guys found this useful. Drop a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check me out over on Instagram at the Rope Monster, and I will see you guys in the next one. Rope Monster out. One other thing I wanted to mention to you guys is that Colosio is a dry neighborhood. I didn't know that till I signed my lease, but if you go to the tiendas here, you won't find any beer for sale. There's no liquor, no wine, so keep that in mind. And also, you're going to have a lot better luck finding these cheap apartments. Hey, finding these cheap apartments if you speak Spanish. And I don't want to discourage anyone, but you'll want a Mexican phone number, first of all, like I mentioned, Telcel, so that if you call on these places, the people will see that it's a Mexican number. They won't start really high on the price or try to take advantage of you seeing that you have a US or Canadian prefix on WhatsApp.